can just, I'll give you, your system is up now, right?
No, but I don't have to make my video on, right? That's fine, right?
So how will you do it if you don't have your video up? You have to share your screen, right? Or you can just talk with the video.
I can just talk and share my screen.
Correct. Yeah, I made you the host now.
Okay. Hey, Prasanna, can you share the URL for the YouTube
To you or?
stream? YouTube stream, yeah, this one.
Yeah, I'm just putting in the one.
You're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right, let me stop my sharing for a moment. Okay.
We will give 5 minutes and get started.
Sure.
So you're sharing just to make sure.
Yep.
Folks, we're just getting started. We'll just give some more time for everyone to join, and then we can start at like 4 or 5 in a couple of minutes. It's 4:05. Sunil, should I kick off? We're good to get started.
Sure.
Okay. Andarki namaskaram andi. Good evening. Hope you all are doing good and you're all safe during this Corona COVID lockdown time. As we are starting a new series, software upskilling, and every time we'll see if we can get one new technology. This time we have our community member Sunil Prasad. He is the Salesforce senior consultant working in RTP area, and I think most of you know Salesforce is the first CRM on the cloud, and one of the CRMs where it's a market leader, where all over the globe it's being used very well from CRM perspective. Thank you, Sunil, for coming forward to share and give your knowledge back to the community. That is huge for us, and we're definitely looking forward to learn from this session. I've personally worked in Salesforce platform for some time, aware of the length and breadth of the technology. Having said that, Sunil, over to you.
Thanks, Prasanna. Let me share my screen. Okay, sharing my screen now. Hello, guys. I hope all of you are doing great, staying safe, and trying not to be bored. So this is a great initiative by TTGA to reduce this boredom a little, and at the same time provide us with some upskilling opportunity. So in this series today, I would be talking about Salesforce and related technologies. You guys are able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's make this presentation interactive, and I would be really happy and appreciate if you guys are able to ask lots and lots of questions. All right, let's get started. So this is the agenda. Today we're going to talk about a little about cloud computing, the basics, what cloud computing is all about, and how it relates to Salesforce, and then jump more deeply into Salesforce architecture. Look at like architecture, the data model. The data model will be looking at objects, relationships, and fields and records. And then we will quickly take a look at the SFDC security model, and then the application lifecycle. And then we'll also talk about App Exchange and job opportunities. And finally, we will also give you some time to ask question and answers, but I request you guys to stop me if you have any questions, and not wait for the end of the call, like to ask questions. All right. So about me, my name is Sunil Prasad. I'm the Salesforce dev lead at Ecolab Inc. It is a company based out of St. Paul, Minnesota. It is usually a good place and famous, popular for reasons other than the recent ones. Right, I have 15 years of more than 15 years of experience in IT industry. And I've started like my career as a Java J2E developer, and then eventually moved on to Salesforce because of inspiration from my family, my brother, and he's into Salesforce. So his push was like really one of the main reasons, right? Okay. Introduction to cloud computing. So here we'll talk about the basics of cloud computing, how we differentiate, like the different terminology used in cloud computing nowadays. And this is usually like based on the deploy model and the delivery model, right? So for deploy models, we have three different models, like where a cloud service could be deployed to. Does anybody can anybody give me a quick definition of cloud computing before I proceed to the next slide? Anyone on the call? Waiting for a response. Anybody? Quickly, just one liner. Don't worry if it is like not correct or anything you feel. What is cloud computing? Prasanna, at least you.
Yeah. So basically, the infrastructure which was on local networks moving to a shared network, which is the infrastructure, either it could be public, private, or hybrid, what you're showing. And it's a place where not it's there physically in a location, but it's co-located where everyone can share. So that's high level on cloud.
Awesome. Thanks, Prasanna. All right. So cloud computing is nothing but delivery of any computing service over the internet. So any service that you access over the internet can be counted as a cloud computing service. Here are a couple of things to remember here. All hardware, software, and any other infrastructure related or security related stuff is provided by the cloud provider. So cloud provider is the one that is hosting or like providing, not really hosting. He might host or he might not host or like source this to a third party, but he is the one that is providing the service. And there mainly like there are like two different aspects of this, like the consumer and the businesses, like business. So for consumers, one of the main benefits for consumers is the convenience and accessibility. So I can access, for example, my Gmail anytime from any place. So that is one of the main advantages. Like if you take an example of any e-commerce site, again, that is what counts the most convenience and accessibility. And apart from end consumers like us, there are a lot of businesses that also look towards cloud computing for their usage. That might be because of lower costs, high speed, scalability, accessibility, and security. They don't have to worry about any of these overheads. Everything would be taken care by the service cloud provider. So, for example, take the example of Outlook. Right? There is a free version that end users like us can use without paying anything. But there is also a commercial version, business version of it that a business pays for. To like, you guys must have used like Outlook in your offices, right? And you can access that Outlook from your phone or from home as well. So that is from a business perspective. So cloud computing can be differentiated based on how it is deployed And there are like, and also like the delivery model. I'll talk about what a delivery model is in a bit here. But there are generally three ways to deploy cloud resources. One is public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. So what is public cloud? Public cloud is nothing but it is the most common way of deploying a cloud computing resource, right? The cloud resources like servers and storage are owned and operated by a third-party cloud service provider, and the most important thing is they are delivered over the internet. So take an example of Microsoft Azure. So that is an example of a public cloud. Let me go to the next slide. In a public cloud, the resources are shared. The same hardware, storage, and network devices are shared across different organizations, or they are called as tenants, cloud tenants. The examples include Google Apps, Outlook 365. The main audience in this case is the public cloud is the end consumer. So private cloud. Consists of resources used exclusively by a business. These resources cannot be accessed by outsiders. So take an example of the data center located at your organization, or it can be a co-located data center, or it can be hosted by a third-party service provider. These are always maintained on a private network, and the hardware and software are dedicated to that particular organization. So there is no sharing of any kind. And there is the third type of cloud called hybrid cloud. So this is a combination of both public and private clouds. So for example, there is this data center at your organization that you can access email from, but then there is also a cloud version of it, which will enable the employees to access their data outside of the office location. So that is an example of a hybrid cloud. Any questions so far? Okay, let's talk about delivery models. So this is the what. Now we know how cloud computing resources are deployed, right? Public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. But let's now talk about the what of these services. So by that, what I mean is what kind of service each of these deployments provide. So let us go to the next slide. Actually, it'll make more sense. So if arranged, right, there are three layers. The first layer is software, the second layer is platform, and the third layer is infrastructure. So for any cloud computing resource, we need these three to run. So let's take the example of Outlook. So now Outlook, we need, first of all, we need software for that, right? And so that would be a part of the first layer, SaaS. The full form of that is software as a service, right? So that would include the software side of it. And then we have the second layer as platform as a service. And then the third layer is infrastructure as a service. So now coming back to that example of Outlook, the data that we enter, the emails that we send, that needs to be stored somewhere, right? It's not just like coming out of nowhere. So that the storage for that, for example, comes in the third layer, infrastructure. So so a lot of these computing resources, they overlap like in these layers. So they can also be like called as they can be a part of SaaS. They can be a part of PaaS, platform as a service. Let us dive deep into these three a little. So SaaS is nothing but software as a service. So this is nothing but a pay-per-use of application software. So application software is nothing but any software that provides some services. So for example, like the very obvious example would be sending an email. So we can say that that is an application software, right? All of the underlying infrastructure, middleware, app software, and the app data are all located in the service provider's data center. So the end user here does not have to worry about anything. He's just going to use the software. So if you take like Gmail again, all Google Drive or Google Maps, these are all like free versions of SaaS software. But the companies make this service provider make money out of providing these services to businesses, where they charge by like each user or data used. So target audience here is end consumers, and we talked about free versions, and there are like some paid versions. For example, ERP, CRM, and document management like SharePoint. So these are like the popular software versions of SaaS. Can anybody give me an example for ERP or CRM software?
CRM, of course, is SharePoint. ERP is SAP, BAN. I have one question for the community, Sunil. We have these developer versions, we have these free versions, right? Because folks here who join, most of them are developers in different technologies. Can you give them a roadmap how they can just use a free version of Salesforce account to get in and learn? Can you touch on that?
Yes, sure. So most of these companies offer these free versions, like for mainly two reasons, right? One, like let the people learn more about that software, and then they also offer free versions for non-profit orgs or for charities. So even though it is a free version, it would still count as a SaaS. It will come under this SaaS category. And this is like kind of a business model. So right now they will encourage you to use the free version. But for a small, take an example of a small business. So I just started a business. Now I need a CRM software. So I go and like use the free version online, right? But then as my business starts to grow, I would like to add like more data or more capabilities to that CRM system, which are not available in the free version, like unless it's a non-profit. And then at that point, what most likely, if I'm using a CRM software like Salesforce, I would like go to Salesforce and buy the next available package they have. So I can like upgrade to higher versions as my business improves. Does that answer your question? Anything? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So for a developer to go in, they can just go buy a free trial version, and then they can upgrade if required, right? That's the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
In SaaS, like you rent the use of an app for your organization, and let your users connect to it over the internet. So this clause over the internet is very important because this is a model under cloud computing. So usually this access is through the web browser or a very light client application. Let's talk about the next model. So here we have SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service, right? So we talked about the first one. Let's talk about infrastructure as a service, and then let's go to the platform as a service. So infrastructure as a service is nothing but providing providing the infrastructure to be providing infrastructure for other businesses or mainly businesses to use as part of their apps or their services, right? This infrastructure can include servers, databases, security software, like in firewalls, things of that sort. Anything that falls under the infrastructure category for IT department, that would be that would come under this category. So there are like a lot of businesses that have these capability. They have this infrastructure already there, and they rent it out to other businesses. Mainly businesses, because like in consumers like us, we don't like usually go and rent any servers or anything like that. Examples include Amazon EC2, Amazon Web Services, RDS, Elastic, Beanstalk. And here the target audience is system admins, database admins, and DevOps. So this is where like the deployments and all that things happen. Any questions?
So you have to touch PaaS, right? There was a question from the audience. Can you give an example on PaaS? Yes.
Can you come in? Sorry.
Can you give an example on PaaS? PASS, P for Peter, was the question.
Yeah, these are the examples for PaaS. These services, like for Amazon EC2, it is a service which provides which rents out their servers. So basically, we can deploy our apps on their servers and their network. They have like all the other things related to the infrastructure already there. For example, when we say a server, it is not just a server, right? It has like a combination of a lot of things. From a security perspective, there is a firewall, and there's a firewall. And from a load balancing perspective, there are like not just one server. It's like a number of servers that are related to each other, and then like the load balancing software itself, and then we have like the switches. So this is all to maintain maintain availability of that service for most of the time. Even if one server fails, the load balancer ensures that the request is like handled by another working server.
Yeah, it's referring to nodes, right? Different nodes, node 1, node 2, node 3.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It depends on how the network is set up. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was like about infrastructure as a service. I'll talk about platform as a service. I'll give some examples also.
Sure.
So platform as a service is a combination of infrastructure as a service. So, and it also encompasses the tools needed to develop an application, right? Take for example, I want to build a Java application, right, and deploy it. So now if I look for a cloud provider, cloud service provider, then I would expect that service provider to have like the JVM needed for a Java application to run, and then a server like a web server to deploy it. I'm just giving an example, and then I would also expect them to have like the necessary backend structure, like the infrastructure itself, right? To where we can store the data related to my application. So this is a combination of infrastructure and all the infrastructure, and also the tools that enable one to build web applications. So here, like it enables complete development and deployment of like any web application. And it supports like the entire web application lifecycle, starting from building to building, in other words, like development, deploying, testing, managing, and then updating as well. One advantage that this model offers is as an application builder, I don't have to worry about any of the licenses, like for any of the software that I'm using. So that everything and the underlying infrastructure, that is taken care by the service provider. So the basic mantra here is I manage the application and the services that I develop, right? And the cloud service provider manages everything else. So that is the basic mantra of this platform as a service. So again, examples include Amazon Web Services, Windows Azure, Heroku, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, and Force.com. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Sunil, thank you.
Okay. Okay, now question time, guys, for you. This is not question time. You can ask me questions anytime, but this is a slide where I ask questions first to you guys, right? Can you guys give me the full form of ERP and CRM? These are pretty simple questions.
Yeah, I work for Oracle ERP and I still can't remember what is ERP.
Enterprise resource
Enterprise
planning.
Almost there, almost there.
Enterprise resource planning.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And CRM?
Customer relational management.
Yeah, customer relationship management. Excellent, guys. Excellent.
I mean, I did not work on, but I Googled. Okay.
Hey, that's not fair. That's not fair.
Sadly, I worked on both of them. I can't remember that.
Hey, you guys got a really good sense of humor.
Hey, Sunil, I have a question on the private cloud. This is Raghav.
Okay.
Private cloud. Private cloud and is the same thing as a native cloud. I mean, both are same. When people talk about native cloud.
That's a good question. Let me answer that at the end of this session. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, because I need to Google that answer. I'm just kidding. Yeah, let me come back to that question.
No problem.
Okay. Can anybody tell me the difference between ERP system and a CRM system?
It's all about functionality, Sunil. Customer relationship is all about the functionality which is related to customer for an enterprise. And enterprise planning is all about the functional modules like manufacturing, sales and distribution, production management, finance. All those are packaged in ERP.
Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, ERP will have like your products and your manufacturing inventory, and CRM is all about your customer support and how well you support your customers, right? Like,
do they have any similarities? ERP and CRM.
It's data. Data is like data, right? Your customer data and your product data.
Yeah, that is true. Data is there, but anything else, like any common goal?
Serve the customer?
Almost there, yeah. So they have a common goal, right? And they both are used to primarily increase the overall profitability of a business, right?
Yeah, CSAT maybe, right? Customer satisfaction or profitability. Yeah, you're right.
Mainly, like they help a business improve its profitability, but the main difference lies in how they do it. So whereas ERP, it emphasizes on the business processes, on the back-end systems, like how the data is stored, how efficiency can be improved, right? And whereas the CRM software, it concentrates on the front end, it concentrates on the customer and the sales-related processes. So while ERP focuses on reducing overheads and cutting costs, its main aim is to make these business processes more efficient, right, and reduce the amount of capital, amount of money spent on those processes.
Correct.
Yeah, CRM is a system for storing, I would say recording and storing any information related to customer interactions.
Correct.
So this is like CRM is primarily used to organize, automate, and then synchronize. I would say sales, marketing, and customer service.
Yeah, and service, right? Service, sales, and marketing. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Let's jump into SFDC. Can anybody give me a full form of SFDC?
Salesforce.com.
That's correct. So it's Salesforce.com. Salesforce was founded in 1999 in San Francisco by Mark Benioff, and then from 1999, Salesforce acquired a lot of other software and integrated into its platform. We'll take a look at those as well. But Salesforce is mainly known for its CRM product. So these are
we use for service cloud for RMS.
Yep. So we have we have different modules, sales, service, marketing, and each of these commerce. So each of these modules target a specific segment of the customer relationship. For example, sales, it mainly focuses on how to improve the sales. So it has everything related to the sales aspect. Services how to handle after sales, the service request from a customer.
Yeah, RMS support. Yeah.
Support, exactly. And then we have marketing, where we send out the marketing email. And commerce, they have two different modules: B2B commerce and B2C commerce. So B2B commerce, it's formerly known as CloudCrave. So it was also one of the companies acquired by Salesforce. So it mainly deals with e-commerce between business to business. And the B2C version, business to consumer version, that is the Demandware software that Salesforce acquired. And they also acquired MuleSoft for integration purposes, right? And then like they have a lot of they have a analytics module, and they have something called a communities module. For example, as a business, if I want to expose some of the data to people, so I can like create a community in Salesforce. And I'll give you a better example actually. So I'm a product company. I sell like different products. So I can set up a community where I have like all the product manuals, so that anybody can like customers can go and download the product manuals if required from there. And they also have something called portals. Portals is an older version actually. It got upgraded to communities, and they have something called site as well. Any question on this?
Yeah, the portal is where the customer create the cases, right? Case management and the support.
They can, yes, they can. Yeah, it needs like with communities we can create a basic structure, and then we can add the functionality. Yeah. So we'll talk about
Salesforce bought a company called Steelbrick. It's a CPQ, quote to cash base. So all these are bucketed in which stream here? Do we know?
Yeah. So there is something called App Exchange. So imagine that as a Play Store, Android Play Store for Salesforce, right? So I can develop an app there that works with Salesforce, and I can put it out there, and people can go and buy that. So there are like lots of apps. Popular among them are like CPQ, as you said, and there's like tons of them. Jitterbit. They have like each of the apps has a different purpose. Okay. Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and Marketing Cloud. So these are primarily, since they are offered over the internet. So all these are offered over the internet, right? So that's why they are like called Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and Marketing Cloud. In the Sales Cloud, there is this concept of leads, accounts, contacts, and opportunities. We'll talk about those later when we talk about objects, but just so you guys know, the starting place for any sale is a lead, right? Now, if I know somebody is interested in a product that I sell, then that person is nothing but a lead for me. And this Sales Cloud, it offers like it is very it's very elaborate. So starting from that point, it will let me capture everything related to that lead, and it lets me follow up, and then it also lets me if that prospect, right, if that lead actually buys a product from my business, then it will get converted into into a contact and a account. So will be created for that. So Sales Cloud does all of that automatically. So I don't have to worry about as a business. I can mainly concentrate on selling. So. Okay, question time again. Can you guys name any alternate CRM solution?
Dynamic 365, and one thing I can think of from Microsoft.
Correct. Yeah, that is one of them.
Sugar CRM, I guess, right?
Yep. Sugar CRM. Then we have Infor, Pega CRM, Sage CRM. Not this is like very elaborate Salesforce CRM. But there are like if as a small company, I think people have started looking at smaller versions of this CRM without like all these bells and whistles. So these other CRM solutions are also getting popular. Okay, let's get into more technical details.
So I have a question on the SFDC CRM offerings.
Sure.
Like whenever people are referring to outside, I mean, they're talking about healthcare cloud, finance cloud, and all of those things, but they eventually fit under one of these clouds, right? So probably based on the business case. Is that true, or is that?
No, this is these clouds, sales, service, and marketing clouds are specific to Salesforce.
Okay, then finance cloud and finance cloud or healthcare cloud. That.
Yeah. They also come under like the Salesforce offerings, CRM offerings.
Okay, but they fit under one of these clouds, right? Probably, like healthcare.
No.
Okay, no. Okay.
No. I mean, like these are again they fall into their own clouds because if you see,
okay, got it.
Yeah, if you see Sales Cloud, right? For example, it has specific objects created. Or specific for sales. Service, that is like mainly focused on servicing. I mean like service related cases, creating service requests.
Got it. Understand. Thank you.
Yeah, so they each of that will fall under its own category. All right. I think I missed something here. Hold on. Oh, yes, I know somehow this slide got missed. So this is the architecture, like brief architecture, right? So if you see here, all the blue layers, right? We have like two different layers here: application layer and the platform layer. So everything under that platform will qualify as a platform as a service. It falls into that category. Whereas the applications itself, like sales, service, marketing, community, all these are nothing but software as a service. They fall under this under that category. And Salesforce has this this predefined software. Like for if it's this is a new thing that Salesforce came up with, Lightning platform. So it allows us to build apps that have it's related to the UI part, front-end part, and it allows us to build UI that is very responsive, and it works in like most of the browsers. So it is like it adheres to the latest UI technologies. So the older version of it was like the Visualforce, but now like they upgraded to Lightning. We still have that Visualforce as well. One thing we need to remember with Salesforce is, or any cloud computing cloud service provider, is multi-tenancy. Multi-tenancy is nothing but sharing resources. Now Salesforce, so I can go and create an app for myself, for my business, and then somebody else can go and create an app for their businesses. Right now, when I create my app, I'm not exclusively using the backend, like the software or the backend infrastructure, right? So that is being shared across like all the customers. So that is nothing but it's nothing but the concept of multi-tenancy. So that is called multi-tenant architecture. So Salesforce has this multi-tenant architecture. So, yeah, as you see in that image, let's take the example of an apartment complex, right? Now, as a tenant living in the apartment complex, I still have like the common areas. I use the same building structure and everything. Like there are a lot of shared resources, right? And because of that, there is a tenant responsibility as well. If I like play music loud in my apartment, that will disturb the other one, the other tenants. So I cannot do that. So with multi-tenancy comes this concept of something called rules or limits. In Salesforce, this is nothing but governor limits. So as my app cannot do certain can do like a lot of things, but it has a limit on how much resources it can use. For example, I have an app that displays temperature, right? And I get this temperature data from another like outside third party like using a web service call. So if I like constantly keep on making this web service call, it can jam up like the resources for other tenants, right? So Salesforce limits the number of API calls that I can make. So it is a lot, but I'm just giving an example.
Okay, so I have a question.
Sure.
So what about autoscaling?
What is it? Sorry.
Autoscaling. Like, so if an app is taking too many resources, can it like autoscale it to another?
No, it cannot. So so when I like start using up too much resources, right, it will start failing. So the option that I have is I can contact Salesforce and do some upgradation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, but otherwise it will fail. And also these limits, they depend on the kind of license that one has. So there are like different licenses. There is a professional license, there is an enterprise license, then there is an unlimited license. So depending on the licenses, these limits vary. The higher versions of licenses we go, the more expensive it is, and then the more limits we also have. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and the one point to remember is not in all cases you can go to Salesforce and request for an upgrade. So, for example, there are some limits on how many queries I can make to the database, right? So, and how many records I can retrieve in a single transaction. So the limit is like 10,000 in Apex. Apex is the programming language for Salesforce. Now, if my code tries to retrieve more than 10,000 records, it is always going to fail. So I cannot go to Salesforce and request for an upgrade there. But whereas they have like a lot of limits, right? In some cases you can request an upgrade, and in other cases you cannot. So it depends on the and what you're doing. So for in case of like API calls, I can go and request Salesforce. Like, and I can do upgrade. I can pay and like start doing more API calls. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like I answered this question already. Does Salesforce enforce multi-tenancy rules? Yes. And what are the rules called? Governor limits. Okay, let's talk about objects and relationships. And even before that, let's talk about the architecture itself. Can someone tell me what kind of what kind of architecture is followed by Salesforce?
Service-oriented architecture.
No, can you try something else?
Multitenant architecture?
No. So there is something called metadata-driven architecture, right? I also wanted to talk about this service-oriented architecture and then micro services architecture, but due to time constraints, I'm not talking. But as far as Salesforce is concerned, it follows. It is built on something called metadata-driven architecture. So what is metadata? Metadata is nothing but data about data. So that is the basic definition of it. But the date. So let me show an example real quick. So let's take this example. So all right, let's take this example, right? We have this data, all this data. You see from row number 1 to 11, right? So this is all data. And then what you see in the tabs is nothing but objects. So these are called tabs. But then you can also go and create your custom tabs. So here, if I wanted to create like something called friends, I can go and create a tab for that, object for that. So all this data, the custom configuration changes that I make, the actual data inside those inside these objects, this is not stored into physical tables. So there is no physical table. So everything is stored as metadata. So all this data, this is not being stored directly as a table. So okay, so let me come back to this. Let us talk about objects, and then we'll talk about this metadata-driven architecture. So objects and relationships. Salesforce is built on something called objects. So objects are nothing but storage containers for your data. You can like imagine them as being tables in from a database perspective. And there are three types of objects in Salesforce: standard objects, custom objects, and external objects. So standard objects are nothing but when I buy a license for Salesforce, I get a bunch of standard objects already. So this is an example: accounts, leads, opportunities, tasks. All these are contacts. These are all like standard objects. So I don't have to create this. So I can like just buy a Salesforce license and start focusing on my sales process, rather than like creating these. So that's why they are called out of the box or standard objects. And then as our business needs vary, we can also create something called custom objects. So for the example that we talked earlier, if I wanted to create a friends object, that would be called a custom object. And then there is this third type of object called external object. Now, if I wanted to look at data that actually resides in a different system, for example, SAP. So instead of like loading that data into Salesforce and again instead of like going through all that process, what I can do is I can make use of these external objects and then create this connection between Salesforce and SAP, and then I can directly look at the data that resides in SAP. So that is what external objects are used for. And when we talk about a table from a traditional database perspective, we also talk about columns and records, correct? So in the same way, Salesforce objects also has columns, but here we call them as fields. So owner first name, account name, billing state and province, all these are nothing but fields for this particular object. And then records are same. So the data that you see, the different rows, that is nothing but that is called a record. So this concept of objects, fields, and records is very important. That is the building blocks of learning Salesforce. Any questions on this?
I have a question about the metadata generation. So when somebody buys like a license, so do you like take the data and generate the standard metadata objects?
Yeah, standard objects are provided to them.
Okay. So,
yes. So yes. So when I buy a copy of license, the snapshot is created, basic snapshot with the standard objects and stored as metadata.
Okay. All right. Thank
you. So now, if you look at this, right, it just looks like that all this data is being actually persisted into a database, correct? But this is not. It is not. There are like because this is a multi-tenant architecture, sorry, not multi-tenant architecture. So it is based on the concept of multi-tenancy, and it is a metadata-driven architecture. All this data, all these like new custom tables are like standard tables or objects. Is stored as configuration. Is stored as data within tables again. Does this sentence make sense? It is very important to understand.
Sunil, is all these objects stored as a cache or something, document cache or?
No. So they have like some actual tables. So they don't have like ton of objects, ton of tables in the backend implementation, right? So they have like they also have some cache tables. They also have some actual tables. So they use a combination of these two. So now, for example, if I create a custom object, right, the custom table. So it looks like a new table is being created in the backend, but it is not. So a new record is being created in that metadata in the already like existing big tables. So to say that this organization has created a new object. So when
sorry.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah.
in that sense, really metadata is still stored. It's persisted somewhere. It's not like
yes.
It has to be stored somewhere, right? I mean, whether it's
exactly.
database or
yeah, it must be a SQL server back in the background or some kind of
something, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so there are like a few real tables, and I think it uses Oracle. I'm not like 100% sure, but it also uses like Java. So that is the underlying programming language. So it uses a concept of like flat tables, and then there is some caching tables as well in that architecture. Okay, let me see if I can pull up that architecture diagram. Just give me 1 minute. I might have it. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Sharing architecture. This is the one. Oh, this is not the one. Metadata. Okay, I actually cannot find that. But
It's okay. You can continue.
yeah, but what you guys said is correct. So so there are like some actual tables. So this is actual database, and it uses a combination of caching technologies and actual tables.
Okay, thank you.
But you understand the main concept, right? So if I create a new object, it is stored as a record in one of those tables, in that caching and then the actual tables. So
Okay,
it is not.
So just an extension of that one. Sorry, but so you have some sort of a standard table configuration that you don't really change. Even if you create a new custom column or custom metadata, you just store the data in whatever tables that you have in Salesforce, right? Is that right? So
Okay.
you
Okay.
just have standard tables persistence objects that you just use them, right?
Can you come again? Sorry.
So what I'm saying is, like, you have standard tables somewhere you store the metadata, and even if it is a custom metadata that's generated by a customer, that you still go into those tables and store data there.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
But then one thing to remember is the new tables and the new objects and then the new records, like the actual data that is created by an app, by an organization, that is also stored in the records.
Yeah.
Of that metadata.
Any new ones is still stored in the same records. It's just another record in the same data.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So that's why this is a metadata driven architecture. So all this data that is stored as again data itself.
Okay.
Let me show you an example here. You want to see an example in Salesforce, or you want me to continue with this like object relationships?
You can continue and then probably just show an example if we have time.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. Yeah. So when we so just to make sure, right, you guys understand correctly, object is nothing but similar to a table, right? And then fields are nothing but similar to columns. And then records is the actual data within that. And objects, like whenever we create an object, new object, there is an option, like a new tab is also created for that. So we don't have to like, when we are creating this custom object, it will ask us if we want to show this tab by default or not, turn it off, on. There are different like configuration options, but a tab is like automatically generated for that. And one more thing to remember here is like for all these objects, if I wanted to make a web service call, like Salesforce automatically creates the WSDL files. So any external system can take that WSDL. I can like go to my organization and just do by like click, I can generate those WSDL files for any of these objects and then provide it to a third party like to actually make a call to Salesforce, into Salesforce. Just so you guys remember.
Okay, so sorry, I have a question here. So you're talking about WSDL files. So are you not using HTTP REST services?
No.
Oh.
So for each of these objects, by default, Salesforce provides web service capability. Right. So as a third party, another system can query into Salesforce to access any of this data, but they have to use a SOAP service, SOAP-based service.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
All right. Now, when we talk about like different objects, right, different tables. So we also need to talk about the relationship between these tables. For example, there are like two objects, accounts and contacts, right? every contact has a relationship to an account. So we in a similar way, each objects are like related to each other. So this relationship can be of any of these three types: master detail, many-to-many, and lookup. So master detail is a kind of relationship in which like the relationship is driven by the master object. So for example, where did that go? So in this case, accounts and contacts. The main important point to note about a master detail relationship is that if a record in master object is deleted, the data in the corresponding data in the detail object is also deleted. So it should have been actually called not master detail, but master servant, maybe. I'm just like saying for the sake of understanding. But this detail is nothing but kind of like a servant dependent object. So now in this case, like accounts and contacts, which one should be master and which one should be the detail?
Account should be master, right? One account can have multiple contacts.
Yeah, account can have multiple contacts, but a contact can have like multiple accounts as well, right? Now, if I want to create if I delete a record in an account, I don't want that contact to be deleted, right?
Right. Okay.
In the same way, if I delete a contact for a particular account, I don't want that account to be deleted. So we actually cannot use this master detail relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The second type of relationship is many-to-many. So if we have, so we cannot do this, we cannot create this relationship directly. So we have to create a third object, just like a mediator object called a junction object. So to create this many-to-many relationship between two objects. And then there is also a relationship called lookup. So lookup is like similar to master detail, but this is like not driven by any. It has like less security, and it is not driven by any of either of these two objects, by the look object. So if I can delete, like if two objects are related by a lookup relationship, then I can delete data in one, and then the corresponding record in the other object still stays. It's not affected. Just as a casual lookup.
Then what about many-to-many? Is it going to affect the other child objects if one object is deleted?
No, it won't affect. So that deletion only happens in this master detail. No, hold on. So in this many-to-many, right? When we create this one junction object, we actually have to create master detail relationship between the mediator object and then the other two objects. So that is a good question, actually. I can get back to you on that question.
Thank you. So let's talk about security. Security is a very important concept in Salesforce, and security also plays a very important role in an organization, right? So take, for example, you guys might have watched Office series, right? The Office. So in that, like every salesman has his own leads and own contacts, right? So one salesman does not wouldn't usually want another salesman to look at his leads and take over them and call them and make a sale, correct? So that all that security setup is taken very seriously in Salesforce sales module. So Salesforce, like, it provides different types of security. One is at the object level, the other is at the field level, and also we have security at the record level. Object level security. So object level security is achieved by two things in Salesforce. One is by providing profiles and then permission sets. So what is a profile? Whenever we create a new user, it is mandatory that we provide a profile to that user. So a profile is nothing but a collection of settings and permissions that define what a user can actually do in Salesforce, right? It controls like different object permissions, field permissions, user permissions, and many other things. So for example, I didn't. So for example, there is a profile, customer service, not customer service. There is a profile called XYZ, and that profile should not be seeing the leads and opportunities objects or tabs, /tabs, right? So we can define that in that particular when we are like particularly when we are setting up that profile XYZ. So we can say that these two objects are not accessible, not visible, and this data is not visible to that, accessible to that particular profile. Quick question. So can we create a user without a profile?
No.
That's correct. Yeah. So profiles are mandatory. Can we create a user without a role?
Yes.
Yep. Good. So that is like an interview question. So profiles are mandatory. Roles are not. Let's see what these profiles and permission sets are. Okay.
So when a profile is created, like, so is it created blank without any permission sets? I mean, with or really like it's with permission, with everything open, or how is it created? Like just by default?
It depends on the business need.
Okay.
Mainly, creation of profiles depends on the exact business need. So there might be some instances where a user with a particular profile should be able to see particular objects, right? So that is not fixed. So Salesforce does not enforce any like. So it depends on the business needs.
Okay, got it. All right, thanks.
And so and like we have something called permission sets. And permission sets are now for example, I create a profile where the user should not be seeing a particular this one XYZ. Let's take the example of XYZ profile. He should the profile enforces that he should not be seeing this opportunities and leads objects data, right? Now what we can do is with a permission set, if needed, like on a temporary basis, for example, for some reason, we need to provide the users with that XYZ profile access to these two objects. So what we can do is we can create a permission set. Instead of like changing that profile, we can create a permission set and then give that, assign that permission set to that user. So that that user will be able to see these two objects.
So permission sets are nothing but like roles. So for what permission role is, right? I mean, it's a collection of permissions.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So with permission sets, we can add or remove permissions to a small subset of users. So it is like we can either like grant more access or like remove particular access for a set of users. So I can create. So for example, I have a requirement where I need to. There is a user, user 1 that needs to see this data from opportunities and leads objects, right? So I can create a permission set and then to that permission set assign that user, or like vice versa. So I go to that user and then add this permission set to him. Basically, I'll show you where, but that's what we do. And in the same way, if I want to remove access and remove any of these like access, I can also do that with permission set.
Question. So when I create a user and I'm not giving any permissions or any role to that particular user, what are the default permissions that particular user is going to get?
So whatever is defined in the profile.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever is defined in the profile, that is the default access for those objects and like other components. And then there are other ways of like assigning or removing permissions also. So we talked about object level security, right? Object level security and field level security can be achieved through profiles and permission set, right? Whereas record level security. Now can anybody tell me what field level security is? We talked about object level security. Field level security is also very similar.
You can hide the fields using field level security?
Yep, exactly. Yep. So that is field level security, and then there is something called record level security. So if in this leads object, if I create a record with a potential lead for my sale, right? I don't want that record to be seen by anybody else. Now, if my company has like 10 salesmen and they are using the same software, the same organization, right? And they also access the leads. They also will have access to leads, data, and all these like similar objects, right? Now, the records created by one salesman shouldn't be visible to the others, right? So that is achieved by the field level security. Record level security. So by default, there is a column like whenever we create a new object, and a column is automatically added. One of amongst others, something called owner ID. So when I create a new lead, so if I get a new lead and if I enter into the system, a new record will be created, and in that particular field, owner ID, my name will be there. So depending on my name, it won't be shown to any other like salesman. Does it make sense?
So how do you open up the record? Is there a way to open up record level security to like if
Yes.
I want to? So by default, it is only shown to me. It is only available to me. Now I want to show that record to somebody else. Then how do you?
Yes. Yeah. There is a way, and I'll talk about it. Yep. Right. So object level security and field level security is obtained through profiles, and for record level security, we have something called organization-wide defaults and role hierarchies and sharing rules. Right. So organization-wide defaults is the most restrictive form of security. So in that, for example, I would say like don't show any of the data to anybody. So it should be the most restrictive security setup there. And then we can open up the records to others using role hierarchies or sharing rules, right? Now, role hierarchy, I'm sorry, is nothing but in a company, I have a director, then I have a senior manager, I have a manager, and so on, right? Supervisor, and the salesman. So for a salesman, anybody above the salesman in that role hierarchy is able to see the data. So that is like something called role hierarchy. And then we also have sharing rules. Now, suppose I'm a salesman. I'm going on a vacation, like for 2 weeks. I want somebody else to follow up on my leads. So I create a sharing rule and provide access to a fellow salesman, to another person. So that person will have access to my records as well. He is now able to see my records.
Hey Sunil, a quick time check. We have like another 5 minutes. 5:30 we have your other kids coming, but still it looks like we're doing very good on time. Just a heads.
Okay. All right. Guys, I think we need another actually session to talk about the remaining stuff. But any questions so far?
Yeah, it's good, Sunil. Is there any rule engine associated, like for business rules or validation rules?
Oh yeah. They have an extensive set of tools, modules. So they have like everything can be automated.
Okay.
Approvals. There's a lot of like functionality.
Okay. So and also document management said alfresco, something you said, right? Document management also integrated, right? For life cycle.
We can do.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Salesforce by native, it offers like we can like upload documents into Salesforce also, but we can also link to other like online document providers, the space providers. For example, SharePoint Online, right? I can connect to them as well.
Yeah. And also last question, the integration you said, it's integrated with the MuleSoft, right? Is a default one or because I attended another session like Delbumi. Delbumi is another integration. It's Max using Salesforce, like the cloud system and other stuff. So can we integrate Delbumi here? I mean, as an integration?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We haven't done that, but yes. Yeah. We can integrate like any of like MuleSoft, Delbumi, or Informatica.
Okay. Thank you, Sunil.
No problem. All right, guys.
Sunil,
you can. Sure.
So I just have a doubt regarding profiles and record level sharing. So for profiles, if there is when the object is not visible to one user or any user, and but the OW says that they can have access to it. So what can we do? Is that
so by profile, the profile does not have access to an object.
Yeah, he doesn't have an permission to view the object.
But OWD is like mainly for record level, right? That's for record level.
So is the record be visible or not? So that's my question.
So in that case, it won't be, because profile does not allow that object to be visible at all in the first place, correct?
Yes. So it won't be visible. The record won't be visible.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Oh.
I don't think so. I can confirm. That's actually a good question. Yeah, and if you have any questions, right? I mean, I can like anything related to Salesforce, you can like reach out to Prasanna and he can give you guys my contact. I can like friendly without any monetary. I can like guide you if any guidance is needed.
Yeah, for all your questions, send your communications.ttga and we'll connect you to Sunil and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
And if you would like another session, please let Prasanna know so that he can call me back.
Yeah, I mean this is very good. Like I would like to have another session.
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, we'll
Thanks,
see. Yeah, definitely we'll see Srinath. I think really appreciate Sunil for his time and giving back to this community. We'll definitely see if we can have one more session like this. Thank you all. You have a good day and good evening. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sunil, you want to give me the admin? I'll just close.
Sure.
Can you please share Prasanna's number or anything?
Yeah, you can reach at communication.ttga.
TT, where exactly is?
There is a in the advertisement, in the flyer, you will see the email. You can reply to that and you can
Can you share the website or anything on the chat group so that I could save it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How do I?
Just go do the right click and say share this. Should be
I'm actually not able to do a right click.
or on the right side, on the right top, there are 3 dots, right?
Oh, okay. Stop live stream is there.
Or you can just, you can say definitely you can stop the live stream.